This certainly was a hectic news and political week in South Africa. We've seen the Gauteng coalition break through, the ANC scrambling to raise 200 million rand for staff salaries ahead of Christmas. Let's now speak to political analyst Sandile Swana, who will give us an overview of the week that was and a preview of the coming week. Mr. Swana, very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to The Full View.
Thank you so much, sir.
Well, we've seen after weeks of discussions between the DA and several other political parties, regarding a coalition government, an agreement has finally been reached for them to work together. But will they, though? Just judging from the length of the negotiations and, the horse trading that has been going on, will they be able to work together?
Yes, I'm personally impressed. Obviously, Joburg is the pearl of African cities,
yes.
Crown jewel. So when I look at Joburg, I'm very impressed with the coalition and the allocation of MMC positions there. You have the DA taking half of them, and you have the Action SA taking about 3, I believe, and then IFP and ACDP, if I remember correctly. Now, when you look at those parties, number one, those are the parties that have experience in government, that they've actually held power in their hands. The DA has held power in their hands. IFP has held power in their hands for a long time before apartheid and during the democratic era. Herman Mashaba held power and did a sterling job. On top of that, certainly those 3 leading parties in this coalition now, their ideological positions don't differ much. We know that the IFP was very close to the governing party of apartheid and the DP of the day before, which preceded the DA in terms of liberal economies and so on. So I think ideologically and in terms of technical expertise, they are actually a very good combination.
What could have possibly led to the deadlock of these negotiations? Because our understanding is that Action SA wanted very key portfolios, including finance and infrastructure development, both in Johannesburg and Tshwane. Could that have led to the prolonged negotiations?
Yeah, without a doubt. When you then look at the final outcomes now, the DA has tended to take the positions that are inwardly looking into the municipality. So to me, finance, why you would want to be in the finance portfolio, it would be, for instance, things like regulating tenders, regulating how the finances of the municipality are actually being held, and then take portfolios that would enable you to control the human resources, how people get employed and retained in the municipality, which has been a big problem, where incompetent and corrupt people and criminals would have been easily employed by municipalities before. So to me, the DA has taken those portfolios that are inwardly looking and has given, I think, the suite of portfolios that Herman Mashaba has received, for example, are impressive, but they are outwardly looking. The DA has given the outwardly looking portfolios to those people. So Mashaba, for instance, if we were to speak specifically about him, has got to be out in the streets and delivering actual infrastructure services.
Mr. Swana, the delay in appointing executives at the key portfolios meant that some areas did not have dedicated individuals to perform specific functions. Is this an indication, perhaps, that the politicians and the political parties have now turned their backs on, the interest of the people, and they're now focusing only on positions to enrich themselves?
No, I don't think. I think that some of these comments that you are basing this on were from, for instance, from people such as the ANC. The structure, the way the structure that is in place now is that of an executive. So the executive mayor has got a full management team to carry out all the duties that she has not yet delegated to the MMMCs. And the law allowed, I'm now focusing on Joburg, allowed her time, the law allowed her the time for all the parties to negotiate properly. Because the other problem that we've had with this coalition before. We can talk about people focusing on positions, but it's also the so-called experienced parties in government wanting to dominate and wanting to be the older brother of everybody, and then not actually sharing power when the ballot boxes say that you must share power. So, for instance, the DA has got 50% of the seats without actually getting 50% of the electoral vote. But we can live with that. But at the same time, the DA, IFP, and others who've been in power need to learn that the vote says share this power, don't hold it to yourself.
Well, a Sunday report has reported that the ANC is now scrambling to raise about 200 million rand for staff salaries ahead of Christmas. This shows that the ANC really is struggling with its finances.
Yes, I think all the more experienced leaders in the African National Congress will tell you that the ANC is in a financial crisis. It's very, very severe financial crisis. And it's not a crisis that is going to be solved before Christmas or anything like that. It's a long-term financial crisis. The channel of funds through being able to milk the tender systems have closed abruptly, and the chances of plugging in new players, new tenderpreneurs into those systems is also closing. It's not as easy to replace those. And it would appear that the tenderpreneurs who got the money, maybe the money was still in the pipeline to go and deliver to the Tuli House, because of the charges against them and other things, are now holding that money and not actually sharing it with their bosses. And maybe now factionalizing that money and financing factions that would perhaps change their fortunes with the law.
Now, former President Jacob Zuma has released a book ostensibly to set the record straight on his presidency. I mean, the book states that this is not an attempt to paint Mr. Zuma in glowing light, but, to allow the reader to judge him on actual performance rather than fake and often manufactured untruths. Is this a desperate attempt, to paint himself perhaps in a glowing light, as some people have alluded to? And, some people have been saying that where are these beans that Mr. Zuma wanted to spill? Because remember, at the state capture, he threatened to spill the beans, and he made 2 appearances before the State Capture Commission, and no beans were spilled. So are you seeing some beans being spilled in this particular book, and will heads roll?
This particular book does not deal with the beans. Sandile Swana has said that the book where they are going to spill the beans is still coming. This one is just to deal with what they see as unfortunate propaganda about the performance track record of President Zuma. Now, Stats SA, the Auditor General, the SIU, the Public Protector, many research institutions have shown clearly that since the departure of President Mbeki from the presidency, certainly in terms of the economy and security in the country, there's been a decidedly downward shift. There's been a rapid deterioration. Yes, Zuma was performing very badly. The only person to surpass him has been Cyril Ramaphosa.
Yes.
So the statistics are there. They are on record. So how we are going to be able to to go to Stats SA and actually pull out different statistics, I don't know how he's going to do that, how he's going to go to the Auditor General and pull out different reports of the clear, well-documented poor performance of the Zuma presidency. It's a problem. This is a problem.
Now, Mr. Swana, we've also seen in the past week Parliament voting against the amendment, to amend Section 25 of the Constitution to expropriate land without compensation. This has certainly dashed the hopes of so many South Africans, millions of South Africans, to be more specific, who wanted access to land, and dashed the hopes of their forefathers who have died, not having seen this come into fruition. Is this perhaps an indication that South Africans should forget about owning land, or should they keep on hoping that something else would come to, work in their favor? Yeah,
for the time being, the failure to pass the bill itself is a non-event. It's actually nothing happened. Our opportunity to become landowners, to become large-scale farmers as Africans, native blacks in South Africa, was not dependent on that clause, on the amendment of anything at all. The fact that today the native population of South Africa remains landless has got all to do with the corruption of the African National Congress leadership in government, in the bureaucracy of the state, and in Luthuli House itself. The fact that the land bank, for all these years, when it had money, it lended that money to white farmers, not to establishing black farmers. And then on top of that, they appointed people who repeatedly looted the land bank, to the extent that it is one of the institutions that can be bankrupt at any moment as we speak today. So the opportunities within existing laws to establish major black landowners in South Africa has been there within the existing constitution. But the leaders and cabinet ministers, I know, for instance, in the Bizana area, of a very successful black-owned sugarcane plantation that was nullified and destroyed and demolished by Lulu Kingwan of the African National Congress.
Yes.
And it does not exist today. So it's a non-event. Nothing happened. We need to forget about it and actually have a government that is serious about transformation.
Okay, Mr. Sandile Swana, great chatting to you. Thank you so much for your analysis.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, that was political analyst Sandile Swana, just giving us an overview of the week that was and perhaps a preview of the week to come.